Hello, Barry and Joe Daddy viewers. I'm Ted. I live in Hamden, Connecticut. We're just outside of New Haven, and I'm going to show you my project. I'd like to thank Barry for giving us the opportunity to do so. So what I have here is a 1968 Mustang GT fastback with a 302 4-speed trans, and it's one of less than 1,100 that were made with a bench seat. Came in royal maroon as the original color. Its build date was April 5th, 1968 at Metuchen. I acquired the car from a guy whose girlfriend worked with my wife, and we were seated together at a wedding, and we started talking about cars. He told me he had the car. Told him I would love to take a look at it if he was interested in selling it possibly. He seemed to be. And a couple weeks later, I was out at his U-Haul storage facility looking at the car. It was all painted. It was covered in boxes. It was very difficult to see everything that was going on with the car. But it looked pretty good. It looked pretty straight. This car, when I bought it, came with tons of parts. Lots of new parts. Interiors, all the lights for the exterior, bumpers, fuel tanks, gas lines, brake lines, many things. He told me he had a lot of money invested in the parts, and he told me what he thought the car was worth to him, which was more than I felt comfortable paying. So I offered him what I thought would be a fair price, what I thought I could spend. He didn't like it, so that was pretty much that. Parted ways, and I figured I'd never hear from him again. So about 4 months later, I get a text from him saying that he would be interested in selling me the car for $500 more than what I offered him. And to me, that seemed like a pretty good deal. So again, within a couple weeks, I was out at his U-Haul facility with a trailer picking the car up. So let's walk around the car and I'll tell you about it more. So my original plan with the car was to take it home, clean it up a little bit, itemize all the parts, and then advertise it and sell it with an inventory of all the new parts that came with it. The thing about the 68s and the 67s is I was never really a fan of them. I prefer the 65, 66s. That body style, the smaller one, is what I like better, preferably a convertible. Ultimately, maybe someday when this is done, maybe I can trade for a convertible, or I would do one myself. But if you look back here, here's all the parts. I got them stacked. Got all new rims, a lot of stuff. Interior parts, upholstery, everything. The car came along with, he had put new front fenders on it. You can see them, they're all epoxied. Everything's been, all the body work is done on the car. New trunk lid, hood. There's a cheater panel that I was going to put on, but I opted to do that on the right rear quarter panel, and ended up doing a full one. So I got it home, started cleaning it up, and found that there was a lot of body filler and seam sealer in the car, along with all the work that had been done was pretty much shoddy. All the panels that the guy replaced, he was actually the second person. I'm the third person to take the car and work on it. Everything was welded in with tack welds. None of the seams were tight. The floorboards were done, but they weren't tight up against the rocker panels or the torque boxes. So I cut them all out, butt welded everything back in, tightened everything up. He did the driver's side front frame rail was done. All the aprons in the car was done. It's all new stuff. The driver's side shock tower is new. The radiator support was
for some reason it was two pieced together. It's like when they replaced it, they didn't finish taking the bottom of it off, and when they welded it back in or tack welded it back in, it actually sat about 3/8 low on the left front corner. So I ended up taking it all apart, putting that all back together again. The lower cowl was replaced, and they put the old cowl cover back on, which was in bad shape, which I can't understand why they did that. So I ended up changing the upper cowl, removing the lower cowl, rebuilding the entire, a lot of areas at the top of the firewall that were all rusted, that they just covered with seam sealer. There was all kinds of holes and rust still in there. Somebody did the torque boxes. Again, the floorboards. The driver's side fender quarter was replaced as a full quarter. Outer wheelhouse. The trunk section on that area was replaced too. That area was replaced with a patch that was tack welded in place that I removed and butt welded that back in. The panel underneath the taillight panel, I replaced that also. That was rusty. That was in bad shape. These corners I rebuilt. When I pulled back this metal, it was all covered in Bondo and there was all rust in there. So I rebuilt from probably about this area here all the way back, and I did my best to save some of the stampings. You probably can't see them on this side, maybe the other side you can. Save the original stampings in this area. And over here you can see the stampings right there. So we saved those. I did this side also. So I did, as I said before, I did the passenger side rear quarter and the outer wheel well. It came out pretty good. Did the rear torque box covers. One side was repaired, the other side replaced. Again, everything was covered in seam sealer, and as I dug deeper into this car, the worse it got. Right now, it's all done as far as the floors are done. I've painted everything in Rust-Oleum black. I did the inside of the fenders with Rust-Oleum also, as much as I could. The dashboard is painted and ready for reassembly. A lot of this car is ready. It's pretty much ready to go back together minus the paint. The bottom has got epoxy paint on it, primer rather. So that's ready for undercoating. Engine bay is ready for paint and assembly. As far as the suspension, I got all those parts ready to go, either refurbished or brand new. The rear end right now is out of the shop being rebuilt and checked out to make sure the seals are good and the gears are good. I'm waiting on the guy to call me so I can come and get it. But it's been a lot of work on this car. Many hours. I got it in April of 2016, so I'm coming up on 4 years. And my original plan was 3 to 5 years with it. So hopefully I'm on track. If I get the paint on it this year, that'd be great. If not, it'll be next year.
So this has been a very rewarding pastime. I mean, I know for anybody that's just starting out, it might be a little intimidating, but jump in, give it a shot. You don't have to spend a lot of money on tools. I did all my welding with it was $100 Harbor Freight little MIG welder, what you call it, flux core wire, which, you know, some people say is not good to use, but most of my stuff is buried. I buried a lot of the welds are buried with lead. I did lead work on the quarter panels where they meet the roof, and when you take the car apart, you realize you see a lot of spots where there's brass and stuff is brazed back together. So what I've done is replace those areas with lead also. But this is not the first one I've done. My brother and I did a couple of 66 coupes in the early 80s, mid 80s, and we did that in a driveway in our parents' house. And we finished one of them. The other one we painted but never reassembled, ended up selling it. But the first one came out really good. We enjoyed driving it. You know, a lot of good comments on it. And hopefully this one the same way. You know, it's a great hobby, pastime, whatever you call it. And you go at your own rate. You don't have to spend a lot of money all at once. You just take your time going through it. My brothers play golf, and they want me to play with them, and I would much rather be doing this. Much rather be doing it. There's just so much. It's very rewarding when you finish refinishing a part or replacing a panel, and it comes out nice, comes out good, and you're proud of yourself. So enjoy your hobbies. Thank you for the opportunity, Barry, to show you my project. I do plan on painting the car in a single stage urethane, back to the original color. You'll see it on the wall over there, on that fender over there. That's in a candy apple, which I don't like. Looks like a candy apple finish on it. I don't like that, so I'm gonna go single stage, probably no clear coat. You know, end up with what I think to be a more classic finish. Kind of like the old cars, the way they looked. They're not perfect. You know, I did work on a lot of the gaps on this car, but there's some areas where, you know, to get the gap better, I would have to, you know, layer more filler on the car, and I was just not interested in doing that. I took off probably 75% of the filler that was on the car originally, and just by re-welding the edges of the doors, the fenders, and fixing them, I was able to eliminate a lot of that Bondo. And to me, that's a win-win. Can't beat that. But that's about it. It's a lot of work. Again, like to hopefully get it in paint by the end of this year, so I can start reassembly. I have the engine is over there in the corner. It's all dismantled. It came in pieces. My wife calls it the car in a box, because everything came in a box. I have boxes of parts all scattered around my garage. At one point, they were all with it inside the house. It didn't go over very good, but everything's out here now. And like I said, hopefully I get done this year, paint-wise. All right, guys. Well, have a good day, and thanks. Bye-bye.
So there's one more thing I want to talk about, and that was the lead work I mentioned that I did in these areas up here. It seemed to me like it was a lot of work for these guys when the car was built to do all that lead work while the car was moving past them on the assembly line. I give them a lot of credit. There was, you know, the lead goes from basically this whole area, just filled up a lot all the way back here. I think the seam is right in here, but I did fill it, you know, fill where the welds are with lead, and then fill it with body filler after that. And then also another area that required a lot of work was the drip rails. You know, they were bubbled. When you see them bubbled back here, you better take them off and fix them. And that's what I ended up doing. I cut them at the point where they join the roof, which I think is up here, pulled them off, sandblasted them, and, you know, put them all back together, welded them. I did the front portions, back portions on both sides.